So Chainsaw Man is ending, and a lot of people are coping about this. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people think that, like, well, maybe they could put out a part three. There's no salvaging this shit, okay? Let's be real here. Like, part two was complete crap right from the onset. You know, part one also ended kind of badly. Like, they should have just ended it there, but they decided to make a part two. Nothing happens. None of the new characters matter. And they ended it in the worst way possible. Okay, I stopped reading like before they even had the aquarium date, right? Like I've been talking about this for a long time about how like Fujimoto is one of those talents that gets like I want to compare him to M. Night Shyamalan actually because it's the same kind of phenomenon where like he becomes popular for like a very specific reason and then gets it into his head that he has to keep doing like more and more extreme stuff, that he has to do like, you know, his thing, like he has to do whatever he wants, and like, you know, people just let him do it because like, well, he's a genius, man, he's a mad genius. Well, apparently he wasn't a genius. Apparently he has no ability to like to discipline himself and to make a coherent plot, and so has tried to go for something that is just kind of all over the place and has no real purpose. And I keep seeing a lot of people have this cope that like, oh yeah, you just don't get it, you're not high IQ enough, like let Fujimoto cook. But like the reality is, if you're going through like, I have been having problems with this series like for a long time. Okay, like it was not like a spur of the moment thing. Okay, like I had a problem with like the way they closed out part one. I had a problem with like some of the the plot elements of part one. I kind of maintain that like killing off so many characters so quickly was a mistake because when you do that, there's simply nowhere for the story to go. Like, because Fujimoto was an edgelord and he killed off, like, practically everyone in the cast, there was no one for Denji to bounce off of in part two. Like, and again, like, the idea was to create this idea that, like, oh, yeah, he's isolated and he's never gonna score, man. But the simple fact of the matter is, like, he should have grown past that a long time ago. And this is the issue with Chainsaw Man as a concept, is that the series wants you to think that like someone like Denji would be perpetually miserable and alone and like desperate for like affection when really all of that was pretty much over with by like by part one, because like, you know, he's been around other people, he should be developing like a more like grounded sense of self, like there should be other people looking out for him, but there aren't. And instead of like coming off as like natural, coming off as if it's like an actual kind of like evolution of the character and a result of the setting and like the situation, it just comes off as very, very forced. It comes off as if characters are dying with like no reason, no purpose, and it just leaves you into feeling that the series is just like kind of railroaded to try and like make Denji as miserable as possible. And this is something I've been noticing about a lot of modern media. It's kind of the same thing I feel about Warhammer 40K, and I think a lot of like really popular like classic like literature, like the idea that having a miserable protagonist that doesn't overcome his circumstances, the idea that that's somehow like more realistic or grounded or like has more meaning than something that's more like upbeat or something that's more like that's something that's more optimistic. Like again, the idea is that being overly cynical is more grounded in reality, that it's more realistic, and I feel more and more as I get older and I consume this kind of media that like that's really not true, like at all. Like you read something like Chainsaw Man and you just don't feel as if like any of this would ever actually happen. Like you don't feel as if the characters are real people. It doesn't come off as if it like anything matters. It comes off like it's just desperate to like mean something. Like that's kind of my mentality when I look at this. When I look at like a lot of what happened in part two. And like when I look at like the images I saw of like the second to last chapter, like I saw Pochita doing like this, like I'm just like I look at this and it's like it's so obviously transparently like something that's like trying to mean something, trying to leave much of an impact, but is completely spontaneous and doesn't feel like a natural evolution of the story. Like that's kind of my mentality on this. Like when I was reading Chainsaw Man, like I feel as if the natural evolution for the Denji character, it should have been like similar to Travis Touchdowns, right? Where you get sex, you get the girl, you get like what you wanted, and then you're kind of unfulfilled by that. Now, Denji is really interesting because like Fujimoto tries to do this thing where Denji gets what he wants and then like starts like craving more and more and more. But like realistically, what would happen is that like Denji would get what he wanted and then kind of realize that like that wasn't going to fix his problems. Like the simple fact with Denji is that the character is like so hypersexualized because of Fujimoto's own perversions and proclivities. Denji is so hypersexualized that it kind of like defines the entire character. Like he doesn't come off like an actual person anymore. It comes off as someone who just doesn't really function. Really, it's just for me personally. I feel like realistically, someone like this would get like used and abused by Makima once in a lifetime, and then like never really go back to the way he was before, right? But the way that it plays out in part two is that like Denji hasn't learned anything. It's like he's not capable of growing or evolving, and it's part of like how I feel about Fujimoto as a creator is that like he made a story about an incel because he was one himself. And so what that means is that he's projecting his own like kind of tendencies and like behavior onto Denji. And like one of the things about incels in a lot of ways is that like they don't actually want to have sex. Like it's kind of weird in this sense, but like the reality of the incel is that they're kind of they kind of want to blame all their problems on this idea that like nobody gives them a chance and that nobody pays attention to them and that nobody cares about them at all. Like they kind of do this thing and they kind of like let themselves like they won't actually do anything to improve their situations. Essentially, they're kind of like incapable of like processing. Yeah, how should I emphasize this? When it comes to Fujimoto, when it comes to like what he who he is as a person, like he himself has never grown out of the mentality that like having sex is gonna fix his problems, right? That's like the mindset of the incel, is that like if I have sex, that'll fix all my problems. If I have sex, that'll like make everything good and I won't have to like worry about anything anymore. But like, that's not actually true. Like this is like the thing about incels that like really should be something that's like really spelled out to them. Something that does need to be like addressed is that like having sex does not fix your problems. Okay? And with Denji, like people like this, with Fujimoto, like these people are stuck in this mindset that like the only thing that really matters is banging bitches. And the simple fact of the matter is that's not true. That never will be true. And they just can't bring themselves to face it because they spent their entire lives like obsessing over sex and like kind of fetishizing women to like an unhealthy degree, to the point where like actual people just kind of like underwhelm them all the time. Like that's the thing about like Chainsaw Man in a lot of ways, is that like Denji doesn't seem to see like anybody else, especially men, as people. And as a result of that, like, he's not really a character that really like resonates with anybody outside of like complete spurs. And that's kind of the issue with it is like Denji as a protagonist eventually kind of collapses under like the realization that like he's simultaneously supposed to be sympathetic while the reader understands that like all of his problems are entirely his fault. Like all of this is like completely avoidable if he actually had some perspective and actually had some real values and convictions, or developed real values and convictions. And the issue with Chainsaw Man is that he never really developed any. Like, again, his entire fixation on like scoring, like it just led to this. You know, this is the end result of it: is that there was no drive, there was no ambition, there was no real relationship, and like it doesn't work as a subversion of shonen tropes. Like that's what I keep seeing people say is that like, oh, it's just a subversion. It's more realistic, and that's something that I'm very, very opposed to as a concept. Like I find it interesting. I do feel as if Fujimoto probably is one of the more woke creators involved with Shonen Jump. Like I can't think of anyone who's pushed more like woke leftist ideology, like with the whole gun control thing and like the whole like lesbian fetishization thing and like glamorizing incels. Like it's very left coded essentially. It's very leftist communist cuck bullshit essentially. Like that's basically what Chainsaw Man is, and it's why I think so many people are now having kind of an aversion to it. Is that more and more people are realizing that about it. Like this isn't wild or creative. This isn't something that's like that really has a story to tell or a purpose to it. Like it's something that was made by a cuck to try and like push weird personal issues onto the reader essentially. Like again, like part 2 is essentially about like, you know, even if Denji met a girl who was exactly like him, like he still wouldn't score, you know, because like again, it's just something that should be spelled out as just being completely worthless. Like it's completely pointless. Like it's not real. Like that, no one like Denji has ever existed. No one like Denji will ever exist. But a lot of these incels want to believe that like no matter what they do, like they'll end up like Denji. Like they want to be miserable, they want to be alone, they want to justify their misery, and it's just unbelievably pathetic. Obviously, I haven't read Chainsaw Man in a long time, and honestly, at this point, I don't think I will again. I honestly, like, this might be almost as bad as, like, Beastars for me now. You know, looking back on this, it's so shocking, like, how something that, like, I really enjoyed, like, in the early stages, like, devolved into something so unbelievably, like, cringy, something that I wouldn't even, like, recommend to anybody. Like, this is one of the biggest downfalls in, like, any, Shonen Jump series I've ever read. You know, this is something that like really could have been a lot more interesting and way better if Fujimoto like just understood that that having like overly dark elements doesn't make a more compelling narrative. That like, you know, making things abstract and weird don't necessarily make it compelling. That like Fujimoto really does need an editor who will tell him that what he's doing is not working. Like I do think that's what like Fujimoto needs right now is someone to rein him in, someone to like stop him from just like endlessly just throwing slop onto a page. Like this guy is just a complete joke, and we should like kind of the community really does need to start like acknowledging this, that Fujimoto is a fraud, that he doesn't deserve any attention or respect, that that he is one of the most overrated talents in the industry right now. This guy needs to grow up.